Okay, now today we're going to begin the process of solving quadratic equation. I'm hoping those of you who had me last year at the end, this comes just boom like that. But I want to explain some things. I know it's not graphing, but I want to review this. Okay, it's a parabola that I need to graph because the second power is there. And is there parentheses? Doesn't look like it to me, so it's in standard form. Okay, if it's in standard form, you're going to need the A and the B. So right away, standard form, to find that middle x, we have to use the opposite of B divided by 2 times A. Okay, so opposite of B would be -6, and there's actually no C, big deal. Okay, I don't ever use it anyway. So 2 times 3, and that is 6. Now divide, and it's -1, okay? Okay, so -1 is the middle. Now, plug in and then add 1, which is 0, and then -2. Think of a number line. -1's between what two integers? Okay, so I have 3, and then 0 to the second, plus 6 times 0, 0. Okay, -1, so 3, -1 to the second power, plus 6 times -1. I got -3. And I'm expecting to get 0 again right there. So 3 times -2 to the second power, plus 6 times -2, and then 0. Okay, so 0, 0. -1, -3, so 1, 1, 2, 3, and then -2, 0. Now I have a question about this. How many places will this graph cross the x-axis? Here's the x. How many times it crosses there? The parabola. 1 and 2. Okay. Twice. And where does it cross at? 0. And looks to be -2. Okay, when we are solving these equations, there are going to be two answers, and that is why. Because a parabola would cross the x-axis twice. 1, 2. Even if it goes that way, probably 1, 2. Now, sometimes if it were to go like this, then there wouldn't be anything, as we'll find out later, but we're not going to worry about that today. Okay, here's what we're doing. It says find the x-intercepts of the equation. I don't like what I did here. You need to just get rid of that y equals and just replace the y with 0, but put equals 0 behind it, okay? If that's not already done for you. Okay, now you need to solve the equation for x. Here's my first question. How many answers are there? Well, there's actually 2, okay? Because anytime we have a second power, whatever the highest exponent that x is, that's going to be how many answers we're looking for. Now, all those other equations we were solving in the first standard, there was no exponent, so it was only one answer, but here there's 2. Now, it's important to also know that x squared and x are not like terms. When you have x to the second and x for variables, they're not like terms. You must use the factoring process, okay? And for those of you that have me before, that's when you have to draw all those boxes, okay? You count the terms, know the strategy. But today we're going to keep it simple, okay? Just doing the GCF step, the greatest common factor between these two, will get the job done, okay? Okay, so if you remember from last year, we're going to make a little box. I like to organize my work into boxes when I'm factoring, okay? And what I'm going to do is make a space with a parentheses equals 0. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the reverse of the distributive property. I'm going to divide these, and then I'm going to pull them out, okay? Is a deal. So GCF equals. Now here's how you find a GCF for 2 terms in an algebra expression. First question, do you have a negative in front? If you do, you need to make your GCF negative right away, but there is no negative, so we don't need it. Do you have x on both the terms you're trying to factor? Is going to be two terms. Yeah, you do. And what's the smaller x? X squared or just x? I think it would be just x. Okay. Now, some of you people are not very good at, should I say, looking at two numbers and knowing instantly what's the greatest common factor that they would both be divisible by. So, you can use this little website here. You can do it on your phone or you can use a laptop. I will allow that. On a Google search, go GCF. I have to use this crappy iPad calculator. I'll do this on the first 2 or 3, but that's it. Okay, the best website is this calculator suit thing. Okay. All right. Some of you, this seems totally ridiculous that I'm even using this computer to find the GCF for 2 and 7. I know that, okay? But some people are just not good at looking at two numbers and knowing what they divide by. It's kind of a skill in middle school. Some of you said, well, I didn't really try that much in middle school, and I'm not lecturing you for it. It's just the way that it is. The ship sailed. I'm not bitter about it. This is what I'm doing to offset that. So 2 and 7. So 2 and then comma 7, okay? And hit calculate. It says that we have a GCF of 1. Whenever the GCF is 1, that means there really isn't a GCF we need to worry about. But I do need to factor out this x. So x. And then you need to divide each one of these by x. It's like the opposite of the distributive property rainbow. So usually when I do the distributive property, I'm multiplying. So, and by the way, another thing I'm going to add to this, you need to make sure you have equals 0, okay, when you're using this factoring process. As soon as you see that there's two different x's, the equation must be equal to 0, okay, and it was because I replaced the y with 0. Okay, so I'm not dividing 7, so that'll stay 7. And then if I take x to the second divided by x, they don't cancel. There's still an x left on that quotient. Plus, I'm not dividing the 2. Now these x's are exactly the same, so they'll cancel. That'll be just 2. So I have x and then 7x plus 2. Alright, now what I should do is wrap a parentheses around that x. And this is factor number 1, and the other one is factor number 2. Either factor can equal 0. So F1 is x. Set that equal to 0. Because if this whole product equals 0, either that factor is 0 or that factor is 0. Or 7x plus 2 equals 0. Okay, so 0 is your first answer. Don't have to do anything there. You need to subtract 2. Divide by 7. And then I take negative 2 divided by 7. You're just basically taking this quadratic expression, that's what an x squared is called, and converting it into two linear factors that are easy to solve. Negative 2 divided by 7, you can round it, negative 0.3, negative 0.29, or you can just leave it as negative 2/7. I'm fine with the decimal or the fraction. Okay, next problem. When you see that y, that's the green light to put equals 0 behind it. Okay, so there's two terms, or there's two answers. And we have x squared and x. Remember, those are not like terms, so we have to use factoring. Now, before you set up your boxes, you have to have the equation. You have to have 0 on one side of the equation. Everything's got to be on one side. If it's not, you got some work you need to do. Okay, so we have our 0, and we can now make our GCF box. Okay. So space parentheses, so GCF. Okay. Negative in front, nope. Remember, negative in the front, nope. X on both, sure. Okay. Now take your highest GCF integer, so punch those two integers in. That's not an integer, it's 3 and 24, the two coefficients, okay? This stupid thing out of here, okay? I hate using this thing. It's the biggest piece of crud. 3, comma, 24. Okay. That gives you 3. Okay. So instead of just x, it's going to be 3x. So I factor out 3x, and then I go divide both these terms by 3x. Okay. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, and the x's don't cancel because this is to the second, this is just x. So that would stay x minus 24 divided by 3 is going to be 8, and the x's here will cancel. Okay, so I'm going to put a parentheses, and I have 2 linear factors. We'll call this f number 1, factor 1, and factor 2. So either one of those can be equal to 0. So either 3 times x can equal 0, or 1 times x minus 8 could equal 0, or x minus 8. So divide by 3, that's 0. Before dividing, we need to cancel out the minus 8 by adding 8, and that is 8. Don't need to divide by 1, that's your answer. Okay? Alright, next problem. We have 2 answers that we need to find. Instead of y, just put equals 0 behind it. And there are 2 answers. We have x to the... I like to make a little box and see what I have. Besides the x a second, we also have a regular x. Okay? Is the 0 there? Yup. If it's not there, you got to do something else before you set up your box. And we'll discuss what that is once we come to that. Okay, so GCF. Do you have a negative in front? Yup. Do you have x on both? Yup. And 8 and 64. This is the last time I'm going to use a GCF calculator. I'm just going to start telling you. Okay. If you're good at knowing what they divide by, I would prefer to use that because, like, if you take trig with Coach Larson, he's not going to let you use the GCF calculator. Okay. For some of you guys who have no, it's for people who have no intention of taking anything past this class and need to pass it. Okay. And then GCF's 8. And some of you are like, well, Hermson, you're just making it easy. Well, yeah, because if you can't find a GCF, you ain't going to pass a class. It's impossible, okay? And I'm not going to run, yeah, there's a way to do it, but every problem would take like 12 minutes. So negative 8x goes out here. That's your GCF. The GCF gets factored out. And we're going to divide by negative 8x. So negative 8 divided by negative 8 is 1. And the x's will not cancel there. 64 divided by negative 8 is negative 8. Don't put plus negative. If you get a negative quotient for the second one, just put minus. Okay? That's 8. Okay? Reason why is because you're going to be screwed up as we do things later on. You need, if it's, when you're doing this GCF or dividing with these things, if you end up with a negative, just write minus the positive version of the number, okay? So that's F1 and that's F2. Okay, so negative 8x equals 0, or 1x minus 8 is 0. Okay, so divide by negative 8 is all you have to do there, because all you have is the coefficient, so 0. We got to cancel out the minus 8, and you don't even need to divide because you end up with a coefficient of 1. 0 and 8. Okay, next problem. If you see that y equals, find the x-intercepts, basically means get the y out and set it equal to 0 on the other side. That's how you find a y and x-intercept. Just get y out because you're setting it equal to 0. There's 2 answers. Okay, and what do we have for x's? We have a second power and a first power. Okay, so again, we have to see our 0, and then we're going to go to our factoring process. Okay, GCF, do you have a negative in front? Well, yes, you do. So you need to put a negative as your GCF. Negative in front, yep. X on both, and by the way, put a 1 right there. If you don't have it, don't know what number's there, it's a 1. Yep, we got x on both. Now, 1 and 2, the GCF's going to be 1. However, you need to actually put the 1 because it's negative, okay? It's going to help you a lot. I mean, if I didn't have the negative there, I would have just done x. But since there was a negative, I want it to be negative 1. So negative 1x GCF, kick him out. Divide by negative 1x, divide by negative 1x. So that's a quotient of 1 with x. That's a quotient of negative 2, so minus 2, and those cancel. Okay, so wrap that up, and we have f1 and f2, two linear factors. So negative 1x can equal 0, or 1x minus 2. You're just taking the expression and breaking it into two simpler pieces, is the concept of factoring. 0. It's a thing that a lot of people hate because I think they don't have a game plan for it. That's why you have to set up the boxes. 0 and 2 are the answers. Okay. Next problem. Solve the following equations. Now you don't have the y equals the zeros there right away. You don't have to worry about that. So there's two answers. I have x to the second and x, so we are going to have to follow the factoring. Before you set up your box, make sure the 0 is visible. It is. Okay. So GCF. Remember the equals 0 because this is still equal to 0. I'm just rewriting the expression on this side. Negative in front, no, you got x on both, yep. Okay, 4 and 24, the GCF's 4. Okay, you can use that calculator. I don't want to do my iPod no more. Okay, iPad. That's a pain in the butt. So 4x comes out, and then divide by 4x. So it gives me 1. The x's don't cancel. You have 1 still there. Minus 6, they'll cancel there. Okay, so parenthesize that guy, and we have f1 and f2. Okay, so f1, 4 times x would be 0. f2, 1x minus 6 would equal 0. So divide by 4, and that's 0. You ever notice the first answer is always 0? Now that will be the case today, but it will not be so as we move on. Okay, 0 and 6. Okay, next problem, 2 answers. And we have x to the second and x. Okay. So 0's there. So GCF, that's how you set up your GCF box. Negative in front, so we need a negative. X is on both, yep. 9 and 27, the GCF's 9. Okay. So negative 9x is factored out. That means I need to go up and divide the original expression by negative 9x. Okay, so that's going to be positive 1 with x. Positive 27 divided by negative 9. Okay. That is negative 3. I do not want to see plus negative 3. I want to see minus 3. Okay, you need to get out of that habit. Because then, if you remember what DOPS meant, difference of perfect squares, you'll never see the difference if you keep putting plus negative, because difference needs to be the big minus. Okay. Okay, so that's f1 and that's f2. Okay, so f1 is negative 9x could equal 0. f2 is 1x minus 3 could equal 0. Okay, so just divide by negative 9 here, and I get 0. Plus 3 here, I get 3. There's no need to divide by 1. 0 and 3. Okay. Next one, 2 answers because of the second power. Remember how many answers? 2. X squared and x are not like terms. Okay, you must use a factoring process after you find that you have an equals 0, which you have. So today, just make your GCF box and you'll be good to go. Those of you who had this with me last year should know exactly what you're doing. All you. Negative in front, nope. X on everything, yep. 2 and 10, GCF's 2. Okay, remember to use that calculator. Now divide by 2x. That's 1 with x. And that'd be 5 with those canceling out. Okay. And that's f1, and that's f2. So f1, 2 times x could equal 0. 1x minus 5 could equal 0. So divide by 2, and that's 0. Plus 5, and that is 5. Okay. All right, now this one has a curveball in it. Okay, there's 2 answers. And you have x squared in this equation. You also have x. Now, we can't set up the boxes until we see that we have a 0, which we don't have. So here's my equation. That's where the equals is at. We need to undo this negative 20x. That's the only thing that's over there. So plus 20x, and those cancel, and that gives me 0. But then I need to add 20x to this side. Now you can't add an x value to an x squared value. They're not like terms. So what you do is you put plus 20x up above the equals. Okay. Now you're like, well, what would I write now? 15x squared. Because the plus 20x is now after the 15x squared, and then equals 0. It's not a hard thing. You just have to think about it. Okay. Get rid of that. It has no like term over here, so you just put it up above. And then 15x squared plus 20x equals 0. And now you can make your GCF box. So GCF, negative in front, nope. Do you have x on both? Yep. You're always going to. That's why you have to factor today. All right, 15 and 20, the GCF's 5. Okay, you can divide them. 5 is the highest number. Okay, and then go divide by 5x. And that gives you 3x plus 4. Again, if you don't know how to identify a GCF just by looking at the numbers, you need to use that app, okay? Just like last year. So 5x equals 0. 3x plus 4 equals 0. Okay, so we're going to be dividing by 5 here. There's going to be some problems we get to when you're all going to want to use that, okay, because their numbers get huge. Now, there's a way to do it without, but it's really annoying. You have to take the smallest number, list all of its factors, and then run divisibility tests with all of them on your calculator. It's, yeah. So minus 4, 3x equals negative 4, divide by 3, divide by 3. That's a decimal. You can write the decimal, negative 1.3 repeating, or you can just leave it in fraction form. It doesn't matter, okay? All right, that's what I have to say today on 1 through 4. Just get rid of the y, put 0, equal, that's how you find an x-intercept. Means just get rid of the y, put equals 0, find the x values. Okay. You need to watch out on number 6. You are not ready to make your box right away. You need to move that 7x out of here to the other side. Okay, guys, that's all I have to say on that. Hope it's been informative for the people who haven't done it this way, and I'll talk to you next video.